Well, good morning, everyone. Just a little reminder to be extremely cautious whenever you open your bottle of pills. And I mean by that, every single time you open your bottle of pills, be extremely cautious to pay attention, to be really in tune with exactly what you're about to pop in your mouth. And this really comes to mind again because I saw one of my great friends, a friend of the program, Rachel Laughlin, actually opened up her pill bottle. I believe it was on yesterday at some point at least. She posted it last night on Facebook. But she opened up her pill bottle and found inside one pill that was completely round, one that was a little more oval or oblong in itself. And immediately my advice and everybody else's advice was to call the pharmacy and or get on some type of an app and check that pill and make sure it was exactly the same kind. And that's always what I recommend. I actually keep an app, a couple of different apps, as a matter of fact, on my phone where I can easily look up a pill. You basically put in the size, the color, the shape of it, and I think maybe the numbers even can be useful on it, whether it be a number or lettering on the back. Put that in. It immediately spits out the manufacturer as well as the type of medication and the milligrams or the size or dosing of that medication. I use that all the time, and I encourage people anytime they go down to the pharmacy and pick up a new bottle of prescription medicine to go ahead and do that. Just double check. Even if it looks extremely familiar to you, go ahead and do that. Just double check it to make sure it is right. And in addition to that, if there's ever a time when you get one of those bottles, like I have many times, and you get it and you look inside and it just doesn't quite look right, maybe it looks a little bit different than it has in the past, I would definitely check that medication. And then even on top of that, if it turns out to be the same medication, for example, I take 180 milligrams of mycophenolic acid 3 times a day. When I see that bottle, even if it looks exactly like that same little round bluish greenish pill, if I see that there's any variation whatsoever, I'll immediately kind of make a mental note of the manufacturer of the medication before I begin taking it, because a lot of times that's the only difference. A lot of times you are dealing with the same medication, the same dosage, but you're probably dealing with a different manufacturer in that case. And each of those manufacturers have a little bit different process, a little bit different type of fillers that are inside, and that can affect the absorption one person to another. For example, I do very well with medications made by Accord and Sandiz. However, Dr. Reedy's, they're a no-go for me. They just do not absorb properly, and I've had a lot of friends actually have issues, particularly with tacrolimus, aka Prograf, when it comes to Dr. Reedy. So I don't recommend them as a manufacturer, but some people do well with it. It's just fine. But make sure that you identify that pill by its shape, its color, its numbering on it. Use an app or go online to do that. And also make sure you're aware of the manufacturer. And if there are any changes whatsoever, just make a mental note. That way, farther on in the month, if for whatever reason things don't go just well, you start feeling weird, or maybe you're going for blood work and things don't check out exactly right, it may have just been simply the manufacturer itself to be different. Now, in the case of Rachel and the picture that I'm putting up here again, in the case of Rachel, again, she had one that was round, one that was oblong. It looked different to her. She went ahead and checked that. Turns out in her case, they happen to be exactly the same pill. However, one of them is a 5 milligram, one a 10 milligram. Now that can be an issue, obviously, especially if you're on the 5 milligram and you pop a 10, or if you pop a series of 10. Maybe there happen to be more in the bottle than that. I don't think there was but one in hers, but you could get into trouble. So again, be doubly sure and cautious of what you're taking in every instance. And then I saw yet another person who suggested, maybe back to the manufacturing thing, maybe it's a different manufacturer. If it is, if the pharmacy is using 2 different manufacturers, and say, for example, you need a 30-day supply of a pill, so that's 30 pills. If they only have 25, they're supposed to give you 2 separate bottles, one that has one manufacturer, maybe 25 here, and then the last 5 over here. The bottles are supposed to be separated. They're not supposed to place, obviously, this different dosages. This was an accident mistake, but they're also not supposed to place 2 different manufacturers in the same bottle. They're supposed to make you aware of that, and they're supposed to be remaining separate every single time. So just check for that. And I suggest doing that every time you pick up a new medication. Just take a second. It only takes a second. Identify that pill specifically. Is it what I take every time? Does the labeling, does the shape, the color, the size, everything, does that look familiar to me? And if there's anything that even causes a question, go and look that pill up, because you might be dealing with a different medication altogether, which could be extremely dangerous. a wrong dosage, which could be dangerous, or a different manufacturer, which is not necessarily dangerous, but it's just actually wrong for them to go ahead and put them in the same bottle. Thank you so much. Just had to remind myself and hopefully remind you. Check your pills, be cautious, be stronger. Or, that's not how I say that. Stay stronger, my friends.